This video is sponsored by my favorite website creator, Squarespace, the best place to go when you want to get a domain or create a gorgeous website or an online store. It's no secret that I'm a bit of a Japan head, if that's even a word. I enjoy consuming Japanese content, from films to books to TV and music. It's something about a certain type of Japanese content that just vibrates on the same frequency as me, ever since I was a kid really. And it's the calming, moody, atmospheric, foggy, rainy, cicada-sounding, like beautifully subtle and simple and pared back and complex type of content. I'm not a fan of the metal and the techno or like the more sugary sweet over-the-top TV dramas. I want the quiet, calm, sophisticated and elegant stuff. The aesthetics, that's what I'm after. Okay, we have a lot to discuss, so let's get into it. I think it makes sense to start with the animated films, since this was my gateway drug into Japanese films, as I'm guessing it was for many of you as well. And for those of you not yet Japan heads, but a bit curious, I think this is where you should start. Now, I'm going to divide the animated films into two categories, the fantastical and the realistic. For me, as I'm sure for many of you, the first anime I watched was the fantastical Spirited Away. It's a Narnia type of fantastical, as in our protagonist Chihiro starts out in the normal world, then gets spirited away into a fantastic, creepy, absurd, gorgeous type of world. When I saw it, like as a young one, I was like utterly, completely blown away. And I wanted like immediately to find more films like this, which I did. I think I have seen more or less all of the Ghibli films to date, except The Boy and the Heron, which I haven't got around to watch yet. And my favorites out of the fantastical ones are Spirited Away, Nausicaa and Princess Mononoke. Don't ask me to choose between them because really I couldn't. Honorary mention to Journey to Agartha, which is another like simply stunning film and so worth a watch, even though it's not as gripping and human as my other three favorites. I think what vibes with me so much is the like non-black and whiteness. There are no true villains, no true heroes, but there's like a complexity and humanness to every single character. They also don't like follow the Hollywood formula or structure of storytelling, but have like their own Japanese sense of storytelling, which I absolutely love because it's so refreshing after consuming so much American cinema over the years. Moving on to the realist animated films, there's so many beautiful ones to choose from, but I think my favorites would be Only Yesterday, Garden of Words, Tokyo Godfathers and Wolf Children, which is actually not realist at all, considering that it is about like werewolf children, but the rest of the film is actually like completely realistic, so it's getting a mention here as well. Set in like the countryside in one of those like traditional Japanese houses, it's a gorgeous meditation on what it means to be human. It also has one of the most heartbreaking scenes in cinema history. I'm talking about the garbage truck scene, for those of you who have seen the film, and it's just like a moment of pure and utter sadness told in the most understated way imaginable. Gorgeous, I'm getting chills just talking about it. Garden of Words is my favorite of Makoto Shinkai's films, which is an unpopular opinion, I'm sure. What can I say? Subtlety, human relationships, lots of rain and food is like made for me. Only Yesterday is the coziest, like moving out into the country and growing vegetables and fixing up an old house type of mood. And then we have Tokyo Godfathers, which is kind of like a nativity story set during a cold Tokyo Christmas with like a cast of homeless runaways. One scene in this film is again one of the saddest scenes in history, but this time in like a brutal, horrifying way. It's bleak, this film, but it's also so beautifully heartwarming and hopeful. And weird. It's a bit weird in places too, but highly, highly recommend watching it. But now please, your turn. The best animated Japanese films. Tell me your ultimate favorite. A fair warning, if you say Porco Rosso, we can't be friends. Moving on to live action films, and we need to start with one of Davis and my all-time favorite films, which is a movie that we watched all the time on repeat right back when we started dating. It's Battle Royale, or as I like to call it, the original Hunger Games. A cast of high schoolers get like sent to an island with an explosive necklace around their necks and get told to kill each other. If they don't kill each other, the necklace will blow. And here I was saying, oh, I'm so elegant and I want sophisticated and quiet and subdued. 15-year-olds killing each other is not that. but it does have the subtle, sensitive mood, and it does have the offbeat unexpectedness and eeriness that I love in many Japanese films. Also, Takeshi Kitano is the creepy, vindictive teacher, so it has that speaking for it because I love him. I think if you haven't seen Battle Royale, you need to make an evening of it. It has two of my favorite villains of all time in it, Mitsuko and Kiriyama. If 15-year-olds killing each other with much blood, etc. is not your thing, understandably so, I have the coziest imaginable fix for you, Our Little Sister. 3 adult sisters go to their estranged father's funeral, and there meets their teenage half-sister. And they're like, hey, maybe she should come and live with us in our old traditional wood house. Cozy, beautiful, heartwarming scenes ensue. Just so warm and humorous and so human. Out of all the films on this list, I think this will be the one that most people will love. It's so easy to love, this film. Recommend, recommend. Departures, a film about a funeral home man. It's been a long time since I saw this film, and I'm planning to see it again, right now, tonight, because although it's been years and years, I still think about this film so often. I think this is the epitome of what I was trying to convey earlier about what it is that I love so much about a certain type of Japanese storytelling. It's quiet, it's subdued, it's realistic and so complex, but with an atmospheric gorgeousness and just perfectly tuned humanness. It's art, it's beauty, but it's also completely relatable and simple. Love it. But for those of you who are more into the weird and bombastic, Lady Snowblood, Atsumi, Creepy, Audition, and God help me, Hauser, there is no shortage of weird, dark, creepy films to choose from. Creepy is the most interesting one and least weird. Hauser is by far the weirdest film, not only to come out of Japan, but in the world in general. Watch it at your own risk. Let's talk about books now. I absolutely adore Japanese fiction, which I guess makes sense since my own fiction is quite often compared to contemporary Japanese writers like Meiko Kawakami and Sayaka Murata. Just as with films, my favorite Japanese books all have that quality, a strong sense of setting, a lot of rain and cicadas and thunder and humid summers, a lot of food descriptions, which will make you feel like you are in actual Japan, and of course, all that humanity, the troubled but beautiful relationships, the flawed main characters, a lot of sadness. And when it comes to all these things, the novelist who is probably my favorite Japanese author is the queen herself. She does it like no other. Her name is Banana Yoshimoto. She wrote most of her fiction in the 80s, and most of it is longer short stories or shorter novellas type of thing. I haven't read all her work, but quite a lot of it. Kitchen is her most famous work and a good place to start. Her UK publisher Faber has also just come up with a new UK edition of Dead End Memories, which I haven't read yet, but which is at the very top of my TBR, at the actual top of an actual pile. Another author I love is Sayaka Murata, who I mentioned earlier. Her most famous work is her debut novel Convenience Store Woman, which has sold in a bazillion copies. And it is very slim and very straightforward and easy to read. Most people love that book. Her second novel, Earthlings, and her short story collection, Life Ceremony, they're much darker and much weirder, much weirder. Someone has sex with a curtain and someone else eats their colleague type of weird. But Convenience Store Woman, you could recommend that to your grandmother. It's a lovely, easy book, but thought-provoking and emotional at the same time. So I think that's a good place to start if you want to nibble a bit at contemporary Japanese fiction and don't know where to start. But another good place would be Meiko Kawakami, that other author that I mentioned earlier. Her Breast and Eggs is also one of those just phenomena that took over the world. I've read all her novels, and my personal favorite is her latest, All the Lovers in the Night, I think. But Breast and Eggs would be better to start with, I feel, because that's her most famous work. Again, it's straightforward prose, not very weird or difficult at all, except for that one scene, which is weird as hell and also quite problematic, but just disregard that scene and you have a thoughtful book about women's issues in contemporary Japan. But again, if you're here for the coziness, for the luxurious, heavy, delicious Japanese mood, nothing beats Strange Weather in Tokyo. It's the only Hiromi Kawakami book that I've read, and I've read it twice. Not because I particularly love it so much, like the central relationship leaves me feeling a little bit meh, to be honest. But the mood, the settings, it will make you feel like you're actually in Tokyo, walking down little alleyways, drinking ice cold beer in a tiny izakaya, licking miso paste off your finger, being a little bit too drunk. Have you read it? Do you agree? And have you read any of her other books? And if so, would you recommend any of the other ones? She has a new book that just came out here in the UK, although I think it was published in 2020 in Japan, called The Third Love, that I've heard really good things about, so I will try that next, I think. The final contemporary writer I will mention is, to no surprise, Haruki Murakami. I've read a lot of his work and I like some of his books, but I feel a little bit cooler towards others. I wouldn't say I'm a big Murakami fan, but still, can I just show you what came in the mail the other day? Yes, it's an advanced early copy of his new one, which isn't even out yet. This is by far one of the maddest things about being a novelist myself, that I get to read books before they're out. I feel like very privileged and cheeky, can I just say? The highlights in like advanced copy coolness has this year been the new Rachel Cusk, the new Sally Rooney, the new Natasha Brown, and this new Murakami. I feel kind of like in that scene in The Devil Wears Prada, you know, the one when Anne Hathaway is told to like somehow manage to get a hold of the new Harry Potter before it's published. Do you remember that scene?
Need the new Harry Potter book for the twins. We have all the published Harry Potter books. Twins want to know what happens next.
If there was like one author whose book that you would get a hold of before it was published, which author would that be? I think for me it was the Rachel Cusk. I don't think anything will beat that. For Japanese classics, I talked about Natsumi Soseki's Kokoro before. I reread it recently and unfortunately didn't like it as much this second time, but it's still well worth a read. My favorite Japanese classic that I read so far is The Flowers of Buffoonery by Osamu Dazai. A strangely funny and heartfelt book about like a double suicide where the woman dies but the man survives. Dazai's most famous book is called No Longer Human, another book about a suicide which was published 1 month after Dazai's own suicide. So I mean, this is not happy reading. It's quite bleak about like the failure to feel like a human being. Both books are beautiful, but where the first is more deadpan, the second is more bleak and heartbreaking. I don't recommend these books lightly. Masterpieces, but make sure that you're in the right mental headspace for it, because if you're going to pick them up, like they're not for sensitive PMS days, that's for sure. For TV, there's nothing like Terrace House, or Teraha as we superfans call it. 6 young strangers move into a beautiful house and start dating. So it's like a reality dating show, but with like such low-key, quiet drama that like the smallest little disagreement feels like the most flamboyantly dramatic American reality show. For us Westerners, I think it takes a couple of episodes to get used to the format, but once you do, it's so highly addictive that it's like my all-time favorite reality show. Terrace House and The Amazing Race, of course. 2 animated shows that I've enjoyed. First of all, Evangelion. I did see the whole show, not the films, but the whole show. And the first series, I was so here for it. It's so inventive in form and plays around a lot with sound and silence and with like angles to create something unique and beautiful. It's incredibly meditative to watch and has one of my favorite TV characters ever, Misato Katsuragi. She wears like the Michael Jackson jacket, she drives the hot red sports car, she empties a can of beer in one go, and yes, she has a pet penguin. I mean, I have to admit, I'm a little bit in love with this character. The other animated show both Dave and I loved, but again, only really the first series, is Attack on Titan. Hello, how creepy is it? But also beautiful and so like dedicated to its own creepy aesthetic. Loved it. But I hear what you're thinking, like we're talking animated Japanese TV and I haven't even mentioned Sailor Moon yet, so yes, here I am mentioning it. I used to watch it like religiously as a kid every Saturday morning when it was on Channel 4 in Sweden. I wanted to be all of them. All of them are so cool in their own way, and I was so in love with Tuxedo Mask, and I absolutely hated Shibuya. I still like know the opening and ending songs by heart, like, well, in Swedish, but still. Honorary mention though, it's not like a TV show but a YouTube channel, Peaceful Cuisine. The most aesthetic and meditative and beautiful vegan food channel on the internet. Go watch. But now, please hit me with your Japanese content recommendations. Films, TV, books, YouTube channels, or Instagrammers or TikTokers, whatever you have that you think the rest of us would love, please tell us. And do you agree with mine? Do you also love these creators and artists that I've mentioned today? I hope so, but please do tell. And give me a like if you enjoyed this and want me to make more film or book or art recommendations in the future. And of course, give me a subscribe if you haven't yet so that you don't miss my next video. Now, do you want to create a stunning website or launch your own blog? Squarespace has you covered with its latest innovations. First up, let's talk about their new design intelligence. Combining 20 years of design expertise with cutting-edge AI, this tool helps you unlock your creative potential, building a personalized, one-of-a-kind website that fits your needs. Squarespace also makes running an online store easier with Squarespace Payments. Onboarding is fast and you can start accepting payments in just a few minutes. Plus, it supports various popular payment options like Klarna, Apple Pay, Afterpay, and others, giving your customers payment flexibility. And for seamless social media integration, Squarespace allows you to connect your social media accounts in just a few clicks, whether you're embedding a feed or syncing your products directly to Instagram or Facebook. It's an effortless way to expand your reach and keep everything in sync. So what are you waiting for? Go get your free trial today at squarespace.com, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/jennymustard to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That is a good deal. Okay, that's it for me. Arigatou gozaimasu for watching today, and ja mata. Okay, sayonara my friends. Bye bye.